Hour. Okay, I'm joined now from the Cape Cod Times newsroom by my guest this afternoon. He's William White. He's the director of the non-partisan organization called Voters for None of the Above. William, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, you're very welcome.
So you're on the front page above the fold in the Boston Globe today. Huge headline, none of the above with a box checked. Where did this idea come from?
Well, the idea actually has been around for quite some time. And it's based on a fundamental principle, which is that all consent requires the ability to withhold consent.
But when you say it's been around a long time, I've heard of other places that have allowed there to be a none of the above on the ballot. I have never heard of one, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, which says what your proposal would say, none of the above for a new election, meaning if a man or woman, if no man or woman on that ballot got a majority, if none of the above was the, quote, winner, then they have to hold a new election, no?
Yes, that's called a binding none of the above, and this will be the first instance of that. If it's enacted in Massachusetts, it will be the first state in the union that has it.
Yeah, and you testified in front of the state legislature yesterday?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Did you find any? I mean, my assumption is if you listed all 200 legislators and you've tried to figure out who would support something like this, the answer would be none of the above. Did anybody give you any indication that they were supportive of this notion?
Well, first of all, Cleon Turner, who is my representative, submitted the bill as a petitioner, so he does support it.
He actually does. I mean, from the reading I saw in the Globe, often a legislator will submit a bill as a courtesy for a constituent, but there was no indication here that person was for it. So at least your state rep supports this thing.
Yes, he did, and because I would let him speak for himself.
Sure.
And Senator O'Leary submitted it as a courtesy to me, which I appreciate.
So he has not decided whether he's with you or against you? But
no, I think he made it clear to me that he would not support the bill.
What kind of reaction did you get yesterday when you testified?
Well, actually, there wasn't much reaction. I spent a short time introducing the bill, and then answered a few questions. I think there were maybe 3 or 4 questions, and that was it. And I left the hearing feeling, well, somewhat let down, actually, and I was quite surprised by the response in the media.
Your response, because the media response was so high and the legislative response was so meek. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yeah.
Often, by the way, as someone who used to spend more time than I should have on Beacon Hill as a lobbyist, I should say, there'd be huge issues and you'd go to a hearing and you'd find 2 staff people and maybe 1 legislator sitting there listening. And this thing obviously is a threat to these people, is it not?
Well, it would change the system, and they are the winners in the current system. So we could understand how any legislator would be a little nervous about a fundamental change like this.
So I asked you up front, but what's the genesis with you? I don't mean where does the concept come from in some sort of global way. Did you have a problem with the legislator? Were you upset? I mean, the Globe mentioned today something that should appall anybody, Democrat, Republican, Independent, that in the last election cycle in Massachusetts state government, 70% of the legislators ran unopposed, no opposition whatsoever.
Right.
So where did it come from with you, William?
Well, I felt there was, something fundamentally wrong with the way the electoral system was working. And I felt that, there had been a lot of things proposed, finance reform and so on. And I'm a systems analyst, and I looked at the system, the election system as a system. And what struck me was this idea about having none of the above on the ballot, because it addresses a fundamental problem, I think, with the way the ballot is set up. Voters essentially do 2 things when they vote. They either decide questions or they elect to office. And when they decide questions, they have a yes or no. And the courts have consistently held that they must have that choice. So, for example, attempts in the past, and there have been many, to present voters with a choice of Plan A or Plan B, the courts have consistently overturned this and said that no, voters have to have the right to say yes or no, because they need to be able to withhold their consent. And yet, in elections to office, we really don't have that ability to withhold our consent.
I have to say, as someone, and it's like, I don't know how much support you currently have, but there are at least three of us. There's your representative, there's you, and there's me, which maybe is a start. I have to say, of all the proposals I've heard, and this is a pretty simple one. I don't mean simple-minded, but simple.
Yes.
I can't imagine anything that would strike more fear in the heart of a local or statewide elected official than the notion that they could end up on a ballot and lose to none of the above. What could give an incumbent or a candidate religion more than have to actually go back and satisfy the folks at home?
Yes, and I think that's one of the incentives to putting none of the above on the ballot, because office holders, while they're serving, would know that no matter what they did in terms of building war chests and discouraging oppositions, and as you say before, so many of them do run unopposed, nothing would get their attention more than knowing that no matter what they did, they would face none of the above on the ballot.
If you want to talk to William White or me about this, 617-244-3340.